Okay, what's going on, guys? NealGuides here. Welcome back to another video. Today we got a very special guest. Of course, we have Damie. That's correct. He's come to join us today, and he's going to talk about his experience using the 352. Because I know many of you viewers have been asking about that, and he's going to talk about his experience as well in the Premier League, the final. And first of all, of course, Damie, can you introduce yourself for those? Probably everyone knows about who you are, but just for those that don't know, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello. Thanks for having me, first of all. So, I'm Damie. I'm from Poland, but I live in London for over 6 years, I would say now. So that's why I've played in the Premier League, if someone was wondering. Then I've been on the FIFA scene since FIFA 18 internationally, but I've started in FIFA 17 with Polish championships. So it's been quite some time. That's why people said that I'm the experienced player on the broadcast as well. And ePremier League was the first tournament that I've actually got so much spotlight and the first huge tournament that I've won in my career. Yeah.
Just to confirm, is this your last? Because you're moving, aren't you, as well? So this is your last Premier League as well, I believe.
Yes, there's like over 90% chance that I'm gonna move to Poland and then I'm gonna play in our league in our country. So yeah, there is a high chance I'm not gonna be able to defend my title now. Yeah.
Well, at least you can say at least you won, and that's the most important thing that you won in the end. And of
Yeah,
course,
that was the goal.
you're playing with your partner, I believe, as well, in the Premier League.
Yes, we had a duo. I mean, it's kind of a weird one because we are together on the team, but we still play 1v1. We don't really affect each other too much, like in the game. But obviously, the score was counted together in the aggregate score. So I've always started the best of two. He always finished the job, let's say. So it was a really good experience for me. We've had formats like that before, and I don't know. I just felt great in it. I always started the game, and I could set up my teammate to win us. Yeah, win us the game.
So on that note as well, it was a fantastic game, and as the viewers could probably see in the background, we do have the game. I think Damien, you can also see it as well. So I
Mhm.
mean, this part in particular, the 3-5-2. Now the big question is, what led you to use a 3-5-2? Because normally on the professional scene, we see normally a 4-2-2, the 4-4-2s, the 4-2-3-1s. Occasionally, we see, for example, a 4-3-2 or something like that, something special. But why 3-5-2? What led you to go into 3-5-2 and take the risk, in fact?
Some I'm one of the players that is just not scared of using different formations or even just trying them out, right? So basically, in the last week before the tournament, I was using narrow mainly 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, and I've had a good practice results with it. Like I didn't really mind the formation itself, but then I've played against Painter from Leicester City, who also played in that tournament, and I couldn't win a game, right? I think I've rage quitted in 2 games. Then in the third one, I've lost by 1 goal, and I was like, "There's something going on here, right?" Which I didn't like because I lost. But when I actually tried them myself, I think it just clicked from the start. I felt like 3 days of practice with 3-5-2, and I didn't know like what tactics he used or what instructions. So I kind of just figured them out by myself really, really quickly. And at the tournament, most of the players were just shocked, like what I'm doing and how many players I have in the attack. So, I mean, I took them by surprise for sure, and it also gave me an advantage to win the tournament.
So you say you didn't really use a 3-5-2. You had it for only 3 days, which, given the fact that you won, is actually incredible. It just shows, of course, how high of a level you are, because especially to use a formation and adapt to it so quickly. And the question I wanted to ask you is in terms of the risk. Yes, I suppose you can say it can trick your opponent. They don't know what's coming, especially in a 3-5-2. You attack with basically a 5 in theory, and you have 2 CDMs as well. So if you bring them forward, but did you not think, like, because obviously you're not playing by yourself, you're playing with a partner. So does a conversation happen where, like, okay, because a lot of people that view this as well, they play with their friends. The question I'm asking is, did you both discuss, like, okay, let's use a 3-5-2. It may be a risk, it may pay out. Did you have a backup strategy if you're down 1 or 2-0? Because as you can see now, you're winning 1-0. But like, if you were losing, did you have like a backup plan? Okay, let's go back to basics, 4-2-2, 4-4-2. Do you think about using any of those like tactics or formations?
Um, I mean, I've had both, so I've had a plan B or even plan C with narrow formation and 4-2-2. But then I've also, I had an agreement with my teammate that it's really good, and he was fine with me playing it. I was practicing with him like a lot during that last week. So originally, as I said, I've played narrow against him. Then when it got closer to the tournament, I've played 3-5-2 against him, and it still worked fine. So, his words were, as long as you're winning and you feel great, then sure, man, I'm your teammate. I'm not gonna stop you, right? Which was really nice to actually get, to see that my teammate is also comfortable with it, and he's not scared of risking it, right? Because it's still new formation for me and for everyone in the scene. Like, no one really uses 3-5-2 up until the E-Premier League. So it was really fun to me, and basically, as I said before, I was always starting the first leg, and what I knew is that I'm the experienced one in the duo. Jack, my teammate, was his first LAN event ever, so I wasn't scared to take responsibility in my hands and to go either 3-0 up or 3-0 down in the first leg and kind of set him up. And if I lose, then I will just take blame for myself, right? So it was selfish, but that was kind of my plan going into the tournament.
I mean, as you were saying, that to have a partner that trusts you as well. 'Cause I remember at this point, it was a massive mistake in the end by Sam. So a quick question I wanted to ask is because a lot of people that use a 3-5-2, they do see that a lot. So for example, like here, just to give you a bit of an example, Sam dropped the ball and unfortunately he played it a bit too quick, and you ended up scoring from that. The question I wanted to ask you is, did you not feel the need to maybe switch to another formation? Because you talk about taking a risk. Like a lot of formations that I also go through as well. A lot of people, they say, especially the casuals, they say, I don't want to use, even the pros, I don't want to use X formation because I'm used to it. So when you, for example, in a stage like here, when you were 2-0 ahead, did you not think, okay, you know what? Let's go back to like a 4-2-3-1, which you can argue it's a bit more stable because the defensive option, you got the bank of 4 and then you got the lamb and the ram coming in deeper. So did you not think at this stage, okay, you know what? Let's change, or did you want to carry on with what was working?
No, I definitely wanted to carry it on with what worked. I mean, at this point, it's the final, right? So I'm going with full confidence that I didn't lose the single game yet, and I was scoring a lot of goals. So if this is the example, then sure, I'm not even thinking about changing the formation. But at the start of the tournament, there were some moments that I would think about it. But at the same time, I think 3-5-2 is also one of the best formation to hold the ball. And we need to remember that it's still the first leg, so he's not gonna constant press me or team press me because he doesn't want to make it any worse for his teammate, right? He's still scared. Even though he's losing, 2-0 or 3-0, he's still scared to make it even worse. So that's why I didn't really need to change or adapt because people were, I'm not gonna say respect 3-5-2, but they were just scared to risk everything in the first leg against me.
I think especially, for example, like at this stage, I know you were talking about in your video as well, and I'll leave Damie's link down below where he explains exact tactics, exactly what he used in his system. And we're just talking about this one over here, this freeze frame, is the fact now that the way that you defend. So you have like a bank of 5 and the 2 CDMs. Why do you think this formation makes it so defensive superior to other formations? Would you say the 2 CDMs with the bank of 5, because you have like a 5-4-1, but they're not really CDMs? So do you use, for example, specific instruction, or what's your defensive take? Like, is it you're trying to sit back and soak up the pressure, or do you like it because the CDMs sit a bit deeper? What's your kind of your thinking when you're defending?
Mhm. Well, there's a lot that goes into it, but for me, the core is obviously 2 CDMs and center back. They're the main positions in the defense. Obviously, sometimes you don't even need to use them because if your opponent makes a mistake, then you get the ball with the wing back, let's say, right, of the left center back. So, but those three, I think you need to be really strong defensively there and not make that many mistakes. Otherwise, you're just gonna open a lot of space for your opponent. And yes, 5 at the back and 2 CDMs is really, really defensive, but it's still exploitable, I would say, especially on the wings. And I could see that in my group stage game against Aston Villa. But people just are not used to playing it, so they don't really know how to counter it yet. Obviously, the quick counter attacks when I only have 3 center backs, there's another way of countering the 3-5-2, but I'm saying only in the tournament. Most people tend to play slower, right? When things go wrong, they slow it even more down and try to get on your nerves and don't give you the ball at all. So Some people tried it, and some people just didn't and lose.
I think, for example, it was at this moment as well, we would probably show a weakness. I mean, we'll talk about the counters if you want to later on as well. I think we both have similar views, but I think also you have some other insights as well on counter that should be very helpful for the viewers. But for example, over here, when you lost the ball, of course, remember, for those that are watching, at the pro level, a lot of people are used to running out. It's very fine to teammate contain or to trap someone. But on the defensive end, for example, like here, did you ever fear these situations? Because obviously at that level, you know how to react. So the question I was asking is, when you were getting counter-attacked, yes, he didn't have 4 players on stay forward, but when it was like in a situation where you lost the ball kind of behind your CDMs, did you ever fear or like say, okay, you know what, I'm worried? Were you trying to go for a tactical foul? Did you have a game plan in place? Because that's where a lot of people they struggle with. People when they come to me and they say the 3-5, they like using it, but the problem is when they get the ball and they build up here, especially against a better player, they'll try to build this how you did. But when they lose the ball in this situation around about here, this is when they panic and they end up losing the ball over here and then they don't know what to do. And of course, from your experience, you try to your best to neutralize it. Maybe you got a bit unlucky. But what advice would you give for someone in a situation like this where they lose the ball in midfield? A lot of people are saying, how do I defend with a 3-5-2, especially on a counter attack?
Yeah, I think people just need to get used to it. Like for me, I'm not sure how many viewers played in FIFA 18, but in FIFA 18, I was using the narrow formations with my fullbacks unbalanced. So there was a lot of times where I would lose the ball with them, and then I only have 2 center backs and CDM to defend with. So I was used to those kind of play style and of defending. Actually, I should say. So you need to be careful, but at the same time, you're kind of fishing for this moment when you can just attack, even with slight tackle or a tackle, which, sometimes is really aggressive and unnecessary. But if you're gonna get better at making those decisions, then you're just gonna take the ball even before the counterattack starts. So, it's kind of the weird one because most of the times where I would talk to casuals, I would say to them that you shouldn't bring up your center backs if you don't need to, because then you just open the space even more. But when you are at the pro level and you understand how the game works and what skill moves works, because here, for example, I know that with Hulit, he can only do the ball roll, nothing else. He's not gonna do anything else. It's just a matter of the direction, right? If he goes left or right. So I attack with the Vieira, and I see that the other striker is running behind me. But at the
These two,
same
correct?
time,
Is it these two you're
yes,
referring to? Or you mean the
yes,
ones? Okay.
yes. But at the same time, I have still 2 center backs on the radar. You can see them. So I'm willing to take that risk of going out with one of them because I still have 2v2 just in case, right? So sure, I've got the direction right with Hulit because I knew he's gonna go back, but at the same time, I didn't foul him. I kind of like tackled him, but
Yeah, I
he
saw.
was still, yeah.
Was that a stand tackle, by the way, or was it like just you just ran at him? Because I saw like I was thinking I don't know if it was a tactical foul or because you know when you run in jockey you could just run into the opponent and get the ball at the set or a jockey anyway to get the ball. So at this stage, so this is what I was talking about. You're talking about running out, and I think this is what's important because I think this is what I think a lot of people because I want to kind of get in the mind of Damie because the reason I wanted to say this, a lot of viewers, for example, when they try to get better at FIFA is they watch these pro players and they see, for example, people like yourself and people like Tex or their favorite pro MS Asari, these top tier players, and when they run out with their centre backs, they think, okay, you know what, I need to emulate that because that's what Damie is doing or that's what MS Asari is doing, and when they do it, they end up conceding. And I think, can you explain just briefly what do you think the benefits are, for example, because just for the viewers, so obviously getting the ball back and getting the counter attack. So at this point over here, if you win the ball back, what does that put you in a situation, and why is it beneficial to win the ball back here?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the situation that it's 42nd minute as well, right? Let's remember that. So it's kind of the end of the half. So if I get the ball here, then I'm having the last attack of the half, and I'm not going to give him the ball back afterwards. So I'm trying to get that ball before he goes into the same mindset of, okay, this is my last chance. So I think if I don't get the ball here, then I'm not gonna see it anyway. That's my thinking into the game against the pro player. And with Vieira, I was a little bit unlucky to not get that ball and to not foul him. But even then, when you see the replay, the Rudiger is still in a good position to cover that through ball. It's just the animation was,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
it's
say.
kind of unlucky.
It
Yeah.
was a
So
bit of unlucky, yeah. It's
I
kind of
can't really complain about it as it was my fault. It was just, the wrong header animation or whatever. So yeah, it's a tough one to consider in the final, but at the same time, I think the choices I've made, like I wouldn't do it differently at all.
you wouldn't do it differently. And I think that's the difference as well for those that are watching that want to improve. And we'll ask Damie some advice on how he improved on his journey as well. But if you are in a situation, if you do have doubts, I would say, especially if you're not used to formation, just kind of run back and play a bit safe. Especially because, of course, on a pro level, you look at the radar, you're always glancing. For example, you're aware that two strikers are running in behind. But when players, especially are new to FIFA, they don't really look at the radar too much, or for example, you have a very zoomed in camera. That's why, for example, I always say to use co-op for like someone that's new to the game so you can kind of see everything. But I always remember that these pro players are always glancing at the radar. They're always seeing like a peripheral image around of what's going on. But yes, as you said correctly, it was a bit of an unfortunate event over there. He covered very, very well, though. Just a bit of an unfortunate event that Rudiger ended up getting it just before half time as well. So you ended up trying to go for the final attack. And then that was a very unfortunate situation. Can I ask a question? What would you say about psychologically? Because a lot of people, they struggle with the psychology impact. Of course, this is like in a finals, you have an audience. I presume it might be different from you sitting at home. But what advice can you give people that get frustrated, like for example, with animation? So you could say you defended almost correctly in a situation, but the game unfortunately had a bit of a mishap. What's your best advice? Because a lot of people, they get angry, they get frustrated, and they end up conceding the game. So what's your best advice, would you say?
Yeah, it's it's a hard one. Obviously, I mean, at the LAN event and in the final, it was really easy for me to actually like bounce back from it, right? But when we play the same game online and I concede that goal, I'm I'm fuming like many other people watching, right? So it's I don't know. You just kind of need to realize that it's gonna happen. Like no matter what you do, sometimes it's just gonna happen, and you're gonna score because of it. You're gonna concede because of it. Like it's also a part of the game when you're a pro player, right? At the end of the day, we can blame the game or we can blame some mechanics, but after the season ends, you only remember the winners, and it's all about it, right? It doesn't really matter like what formation did he use or what did he do. Like the result is there, and that's what we should care about. But casuals obviously have some different ways of playing, and I would just say don't bother about it too much and just play what you like and what you love in FIFA.
If I pause it here with this moment between you and your teammate as well, so obviously people at home, they don't really have, of course, someone to nudge them on. I mean, of course, but like at this point, are you giving tactical advice to each other? Would you say you're giving like psychological advice, or would you say like is your opponent kind of is your kind of your partner feeling what key weaknesses your opponents have? So what's kind of happening in these scenes? A lot of people, they always wonder: are you talking about tactical stuff? Are you trying to like kind of push your teammate forward psychologically? So what really happens in these times at the halftime kind of breaks?
Yeah, it really depends on the game. Most of them are tactical, but I mean, in this case, my teammate just wanted to make sure that that goal doesn't really affect me because we both knew that it was a little bit unlucky, right? And in the final, the mindset is really important because I don't know, but there's probably other pro players that will lose their head after that goal. Sorry, and then concede another one, right? And then 2-2 going into the second leg when you were 2-0 up. It's not great, right? It's not a great feeling. So he was trying to calm me a little bit. Just the simple, you got this. You're still playing better than him. Just you can score another one, basically. But then when it comes to the second leg, it's for me, my job was to calm him down as well and to say that he needs to go forward as well because the constant press and how it works in this game, you can't really just go backwards for the whole game. So we just wanted to remind each other of simple things that we will do online, but it's really easy to forget them when you're nervous, right? When you're under the pressure. So basically, that's what we were doing the whole tournament, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah, it's always good to have like someone in, even like people on Discord when you see them play sometimes in qualifiers, they just have someone just sitting there next to them or someone that's listening and then they only speak at half. And just to give like a bit of a confidence. Sometimes if you're rushing too much, you don't see it because you're so engrossed into the game. But obviously someone else, like a third party, they can see it. So I think that's actually a really good point. I wanted to ask you a question as well, because as I mentioned, your tactics video is down below in the description. What made you use direct passing, and what's the reason behind it? Because you said you used your own. I believe you said you were what you kind of got off Painter, the idea, if I'm not mistaken, and then you said he didn't give the tactics, you made them yourself. If that's correct. You
Yeah,
said you
that's
made it.
correct.
So why did you use direct passing? And for example, because I use forward runs, for example. So what would you say is the difference between direct passing and forward runs, and why would you think you prefer to use direct passing?
I use forward runs on my narrow formation, and I think it's good, but at the same time, you kind of your strikers just go offside like way too often. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't really like it, and my game plan with 3-5-2 was not to really counter attack. Like I know when I go to the LAN event, I'm not really good counter attacking player. I mean, I still can do it, but it's just better to hold the ball and play the numbers with the formation like 3-5-2 when you obviously will outnumber people in many cases. So direct passing was really good in those tap-in goals, tap-in passes where I just find Cristiano Ronaldo or I think Rashford was like the other striker.
Yeah, I think it was just.
And
I'll go back to that moment. I think it was just
yeah,
here,
it's just way easier
for example, here,
to do it. And
especially on
yeah,
next
that
gen.
was the main goal. Yeah. So I don't know, the forward runs can still work, but then I would need to change completely my instructions and players in the box to make it work.
And it's very unfortunate there as well with Sancho in the end. Do you have any advice? So a quick question is just a question for me. Is there a reason? Obviously, of course, you're like in a panic situation, but would you say you green time a lot of your shots? And what would you give your best advice to people that struggle with finishing? Because I know a lot of people, especially even pros, they struggle with finishing. So what's your advice on that?
Well, I mean, in that case, I just chose the wrong corner. If I went far post, it's an easy goal, obvious goal. Or I could even pass to CR7 if I'm, a god, but I wasn't. So in terms of finishing, it's really I don't know. This FIFA is kind of a weird one because you can score tap-ins, but at the same time, when the keeper gets like a really good animation, then there's nothing you can do about it. But obviously, the long shots you need to green time them. And my advice is to go to the skill games in FIFA, and there is some advanced shooting skill games where you just don't waste that much time. Like for example, in squad battles, when you just run and to get one shot and then you run again and get a shot. When it's just faster to learn and there are different animations. So the finesse shots are the easiest. Then you have the headers, which are also pretty easy, I would say. And then you have the normal shots, which depends on the animation and on your player as well. Because some of them will shoot with outside of the foot, sometimes they'll shoot normally. So it's harder to get used to them.
And one quick question as well. So you can see yourself attacking with the 3-5-2. So obviously a lot of people they struggle, as I said, but you play it very well. And I would recommend for those that are watching to, if you are new to 3-5-2, maybe consider slow build-up play. Especially if you're not good at ball rolls and dribbling. Slow build-up play does work very well. And the quick question I wanted to ask is when you're building up with the 3-5-2, what's your kind of your logic? Because I see, for example, use your two CDMs, you do bring them forward. I know you don't use hug the sidelines, which we'll get onto in a bit. But what's your kind of logic when you're attacking? Because you've got two strikers and a cam on left mid and right mid. So what are you exactly trying to do? Are you trying to get the ball to a certain player, or what's kind of going through your mind?
The easiest game plan is to get past to the strikers. I mean, through the strikers of your opponent. So you want to make sure you don't lose the ball between your center backs and CDMs. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you to go to the opponent's half. You just don't want to lose the ball there because that's when you're really vulnerable. And then it depends of how your opponent is actually defending. Because if he brings back his strikers like Olelito did, then you need to play around with your wing backs, right? With Cancelo or whoever you use there, because then you still have a lot of people in the middle, but it's just harder to dribble around. But when people completely leave their strikers, like for the counter attacks, let's say, right? That's their game plan to counter attack me with the two strikers. Then essentially you have 5v4 in the middle, and you can just pass around. You don't even need to look at your wingers at all. Basically, you just focus on those 5 players, and you get that ball near the penalty box, and then you pass to the one of the strikers, and you have 3v2 against center backs. And it's up to you if you want to play 1-2 with the cam, or you want to make reverse elastic or some other skill moves. Like that's the simple game plan, the first game plan that you can have with 3-5-2. And obviously then if it doesn't work, then you need to work around of the weaknesses of your opponent.
I think that's a really good thing that you added as well. And I think when I was watching this back, I was looking at the way that Sam uses strikers. And I know he had a midfield four and he just kept getting outnumbered. I remember when I was watching this live, I was seeing, for example, he kept his. So if he kept, for example, four strikers on stay forward, let's sit a bit deeper, but he didn't really use the strikers, in my opinion, that well. And I think he was forced to run out with his CDM. And then when he did, we did a 1-2 around him, especially when you brought your CDMs ever so close. It was so hard to defend because you're basically playing in between the strikers in the midfield. And I think once you have those left mids and right mids, you have a complete mismatch, kind of like a 5v4 all the time. And I think that's what also helped the formation as well, is the way that you played it as well. You played it very, very smart. And I think you didn't force. You see a lot of people as well, especially when they're new to the game, they force the ball going forward. And the most important thing, recycling, rotating. And of course, you can see it very, very well that you can see when Damie gets the ball over here. If he can't make the pass, you see how he doesn't force the ball going forward. He did in the end there because he saw a chance. But what I would
Yeah.
say is a lot of people, when they play the 3-5-2 or when they use any formation, you see a lot in around about the rank of using divisions last year, gold 1 to gold 3 level. A lot of players here, they just feel the need to do a through ball when sometimes it's about waiting, seeing is there a chance. If you can't make the chance, you can always distribute the ball and go back. You don't have to always go forward and force the ball, if that makes sense. Do you have any other tips as well in terms of the 3-5-2? A lot of people, when they get the ball in this situation over here, they find themselves, okay, if the strikers are covered, what do they do now? Is there anything? Do you have like a go-to plan? Let's say the strikers are covered. Let's say, for example, or let's say your opponent has two CD. Let's say Vieira and Hullet were here and here, and the strikers are covered. Do you have like another game plan or anything that maybe might help the viewers on how you also build up with the 3-5-2, especially outside the box?
I think the easiest one is, even in this case, you can see it. My Cristiano Ronaldo, he was offside for a moment.
Oh, this
So
one, sorry, yeah.
yeah, so he was offside just a second ago, and my opponent is not really thinking about him at all. He's thinking about my pass to Kante and my pass to Rashford. When I see, yeah, let's just play it again. But basically, that's the game plan. You obviously, I go for the safe pass here with Cancelo. I could still play Cristiano Ronaldo, but I choose to not do it. And then here I just play numbers. He completely ignores the Cristiano Ronaldo who just came from the offside. I pass to him. And now this kind of 3v2 that I was talking about. There is Rashford now on offside, obviously. Then there's Sancho, and now I'm just waiting for one of them to get me, a space, give me a space to pass. And at this point, you can do whatever you want. Sometimes it's good to rush, sometimes it's good to just stand still and wait for them to move. Or if you're a really safe player, you can still pass back to Hulit and then to Kant and recycle it even more, right? But recycling is good. It's really good to do it a few times, but at some point you need to pull the trigger and decide which moment you want to attack from. And yeah, it's all about getting that momentum. And with 3-5-2, it's obviously easier than 4-2-2 because you have just more options in general. But still, the decision making is really important.
Just quickly to highlight that as well. So if you're playing a 4-2-2, the benefit of the 3-5-2 is you have that middle player that, in my opinion, really takes the formation to a different level. Quick question over here: when you have the ball with your CDMs, or let's say with the Hullets and Kantes, do you trigger any of the players going forward using the L1 button? Because a lot of the players, they don't see that. Because I know you do a lot of 1-2. So do you look to trigger Ronaldo to go offside and come back on again, or are you letting the game do that with the tactics?
Yes, I do it sometimes with my center mids. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they were without the stay back, right? I want them to go forward, sometimes on their own, sometimes I'm trigger them manually. Even when I kind of recycle the ball in the middle of the pitch, then I use it with my Sancho or like a fullback to always threat the through ball. Like, I'm not gonna use it every time, but if I use, like, for example, I do a through ball which is risky on my left mid Cancelo in like 20th minute and it works, then whenever I trigger the run, every single time he's gonna watch it, right? Like, he's gonna be really interesting if that works or not, and you just make your opponent guess even more. Like, you already have a lot of passing options, but even then you make him worry about even more of them. So that's basically what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get into my opponent's head so he doesn't really know what he needs to defend against me. Yeah.
I see, and I think also another thing as well that you do very, very well that a lot of people don't really think about is the way you also. I saw this as well, and me and this, I'm on this podcast, the Foot Weekly podcast with AJ. Some of you guys may know him. He's an advocate of the 3-4-1-2. And for example, you use the cam, you do again the 1-2, which is very, very important. A lot of people just do a regular pass here. You did a 1-2, and the way you brought, so you see his two strikers then, and you saw his midfield then. You're basically doing 1-2s with Hullet and Kante to bring the ball going forward. I thought that was a really, really good thing. I don't even do that as well. Sometimes I do it. I don't realize I'm doing it, but I don't actively do it. Were you actively doing this? Like, was it like to kind of bait your opponent out, or was it to bring the ball going forward? What's the reason for it?
Mhm.
Because a lot of people here, they'll just straight rush and panic and go towards the forward player. So when you're in this situation over here, were you seeing that, okay, look, he's got a midfield four, let him commit a player going forward? Is that kind of your aim?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a casual player and you see Sancho just running straight and not doing anything, you might say it's really pointless. But what I'm doing here is Sancho is getting his center back going back. So he's going to his penalty box, essentially giving me the space. And then, as we said before, people that coming back from the offside, your opponent doesn't really care about them. He just, let them be. And in this case, I didn't pass to Sancho, but some of the cases you'll be able to get a free pass to him and then open the space even more. And I don't really need Sancho in the middle as well here because I have Kante and Hullit. And if something goes wrong, there's still 3 center backs that I can recycle with. So it's all about making those small decisions that will actually help you. I'm not gonna say they're game changing for foot champions or even in division rivals, but at the pro level, it's always the simple thing that breaks the eye here, breaks the eye there, or give you an extra pass option that your opponent needs to take care of. And yeah, when you just calculate all of those things in one game, then it just helps you win the tournament.
I think that's one thing I wanted to mention as well. And the reason why I wanted you on as well is because it was very basic football. There wasn't like, it was like you're relying on a ball scoop to get past. It wasn't like you're just spamming shot cancels inside the box. And I think what you said over here as well is the basics, like, just for those that don't understand, who are new to FIFA, for example, the back line is straight, but you see when Sancho makes that run, it kind of shifts the back line from, let's say, position 1 to position 2, like that. And also that creates more space in midfield. So you see when Sancho makes that run, the defenders have to follow him. And I think that's where you use direct passing as well to get into that space as well. And I think that's where you played it very, very well. And I think it's the moment you said when you passed the ball to Cancelo, right? When he was free down the wing and won the bet, especially when people are playing narrow in a 4-1-2-1-2. Quick question I wanted to ask you, just my personal opinion. Is there a reason why you never use hug the silence on your left mid and right mid? Is it because you wanted the left mid and right mid to be more involved, or was there any reason behind it, or something maybe you not even tried?
Nah, if I'm completely honest, I've never tried it. I'm playing this game for like 5 years, and I've never really thought of trying it. I mean, there were times when you would do it to just keep the ball when you're up 2 or 3 goals, but other
Make
than
it
that,
Friday, yeah.
yeah, it's not really my thing, but I agree that it can be used and it can be good. So I don't know. I just don't like the deeper tactics in general, but they are good though. If someone
I don't
knows
like
what they
constant
do,
pressure as well. I don't like, but
yeah.
is there a reason? Is it because was there a reason why you don't like? Is it because you feel like you're so comfortable with your game, you don't even need to use the deeper tactics? So for example, like you could always, so like, how you said you trigger your left mid and right mid. A lot of players, for example, they wouldn't know how to trigger that. Is it because you're so comfortable with your game, you feel like you don't need to do it, and you can always do that manually yourself?
Yeah, it's one part of it. The other part would be I'm just too lazy to try it, maybe. And then it's kind of I'm restricting them when I use. I mean, obviously you can turn it on and off whenever you want, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes, let's say you put the hack sidelines on, and then maybe you would prefer him to be closer, but he wasn't because of it. So it's kind of a weird one. You need to find a balance for it as well. And to be honest, like I'm the one who likes to try a lot of things, but at the same time, you can't try everything. It's really hard. And for me, it worked that way, so I didn't really need to try anything else. So yeah.
I think yeah, that's the key thing is keeping it simple and just coming close towards the end as well. And I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions as well while we're kind of backing into the last 30 minutes of this game. What's your tips for those that are aspiring pros? Like I think a lot of people that are watching, I know I got a lot of Polish fans as well, and a lot of people, of course, are very much rooting for you from the beginning, especially when you were using the 3-5-2. What's your kind of advice for people that are trying to get better at FIFA? When you start FIFA, were you always like a top tier player? You said you've been playing competitively for 8 years, I believe.
Yeah, since FIFA 17, 18, so
So,
it's been a while, yeah.
so did you just get straight? Like, did you play a pro game before? Did you just get into FIFA? Like, how did it really happen? Because I think a lot of players, I think when you come from like a pro Fortnite game and you come to FIFA, it's a bit easier to kind of, because you're kind of used to the pro scene and you're kind of used to competitive, being on edge, I suppose you can say. So what would you be your best advice? Did you start like as a top tier player, or like were you an intermediate player, or like did you start from the bottom? How was it with you?
I mean, for me, I mean, as for many other FIFA players, I was actually, training football, like real football on the real pitch before, for 12 years. And my dad was also a football player. So, it was kind of in my family. After 12 years, I decided to stop it. I didn't enjoy it anymore. But FIFA, like as a game, was always around me since I was a kid. And, when I was in the team, I was always bringing like PlayStation or whatever to play with people, right? Whenever we went out. So I've always liked the game. I never really was really like good at it, I would say. Like I was fine, but not the pro level from the start. And FIFA 17, when I actually, you know, thought of doing it like seriously, because I was an esports fan for way longer than that, way before. So I knew that there's something like FIFA esports or like other games playing competitively. And I decided to take that risk to give myself a 1 year to practice like fully FIFA. It was FIFA 17, and internationally I wasn't good like at all. But then when Polish championships came around, then I got third place, and I could see myself doing it, right. Like that was the point where I've actually got that confidence that, right, if I do it right, then this is my job for the next few years. How much I can be good. Good year. I didn't know what I wanted to say, but basically, I knew that I could be good at this game, and I want to be a pro player. So that was my goal from then. And yeah, FIFA 18, I got to World Cup, which was amazing first year for the international tournaments. And then FIFA 19, 20, it's obviously ups and downs, but still, I'm here. I want to win, and I did. So just gotta practice more and play more.
And you're still competing as well, I believe. If you, because you said in the Polish, they have a version of their own Premier League, I believe.
Yeah, they have their own league. I mean, before it was called just Polish Championships. Now it's their own league with clubs involved as well. So it is changing. It is kind of evolving, and yeah, I'll be probably playing there in the next year.
Okay, and on that note as well, so when you were kind of going on FIFA 17, FIFA 18 and 19, what would you say is your best way of like getting better? Did you have like a one-on-one partner? Did you go on YouTube and look at tutorials? Because obviously back then there wasn't really that much tutorials. There's a few people like the Mike LaBelle's. I think Boras was then at the time. You had the Crassies, all those, but it wasn't. So, is it? What did you look for? Like, did you just start practicing? Were you watching the pro scene avidly? What made you become a better player? What kind of pushed you to that pro level?
There's a lot of things you can do, and it's not always, playing the game itself. You can watch pro players, you can watch tutorials on YouTube if you are really casual still. You can, I mean, in the game, you can always compare yourself. Maybe not in Foot Champions at the moment, but still, you want to get that, the highest rank possible. Then you have division rivals, when you have skill rating. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can compare yourself to other players, even though they might not take it seriously like Foot Champions, right? But if you want to be a pro player, like, you need to be able to get those rank ones consistently, like, at least, right? So, you can still do it. Obviously, I would recommend playing some online tournaments. Nowadays, unfortunately, you need to pay to be able to play in them. So it's maybe like 5 or 4 euros maybe to sign up. But there's still a chance that you can play against the best players in the world, which I did in FIFA 17. Like I've played online tournaments and I've lost, first round to likes of Gorilla or Taz or other players, and now I've played against Gorilla in Premier League, right? Like it's kind of funny when I think about it, but that's how I started, and you just need to be really consistent with your gameplay and how you want to play, and then learn some small tips or tricks from the others. So you kind of have your own flair, right, in your gameplay. You don't lose yourself there.
And a quick question I want to ask in regards to that as well. Did you watch your own gameplay backs when you kind of went into the, let's say you lost in the first round, and obviously now you won E-Premier League. Did you watch a lot of your own gameplay back and see what you did wrong? Or did you just kind of like just have practice partners, borrowing partners?
hmm Yeah, it depends on your setup, but I would definitely recommend watching it back. In FIFA 17, 18, I mean the highlights in the game, like after the match, worked kind of differently, so you could
Yeah.
see more than goals, which was really good, I would say, because you didn't need to record it yourself; you were just rewatching it. But now, when you can't do that, I would recommend doing it on PS5 or even on Xbox. You record like 30 seconds clip or the whole game, and you just rewatch it, and maybe you got kind of rigged in the game. Maybe you think that yourself, but when you rewatch it, then you see the extra pass here, the extra pass there that you could score, right? And it just makes easier for yourself to not be so frustrated during the game anymore, because as soon as you realize when like there's something that you can do better, basically, no matter how bad the game was for you, in your perspective, there's always you can improve on, and that's like the mindset that I've had before. I mean, now it's kind of harder when you play for so long, right? But at the start, you can't get into thinking that you can't improve because the game don't want you to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also a very good mindset to have, is to always thinking you can improve. Because as you said, sometimes you can get done by the game in a very unfortunate situation. But the key thing is how you move forward from that. I think a lot of, especially for the casuals, a lot of it is mentally. I think because obviously foot champs, 20 games is very, very draining. But I find the
Mm.
biggest difference is obviously pro levels, they have that in them. But a lot of casual players get very frustrated. If they lose one game, it goes into their next game. And even sometimes they think they're doing the right things. Just because you win doesn't mean you always are. If you're playing someone that's weaker, of course, you might beat them because you're better. But of course, if you're making massive defensive mistakes when you verse someone on the same level, it's probably going to cost you. So I would say, yeah, it's always good to watch your games back. And as Damie said, it's just have the mindset of, you know what, I can improve. Obviously, the pro level is a bit different, but I think
Mhm.
especially when you're getting better, it is really, really good. Now, obviously, coming close to the end of the game, of course, I just wanted to say as well, just a quick couple of questions I wanted to ask you, right? Quick fire questions, right? If there's one thing, one thing you can change content wise in FIFA, what would you change?
Or the
I mean,
rewards
I'm
I
a game,
want.
I'm a gameplay kind of guy, by the way, but I just thought I'd throw this question
Okay.
out. So if you don't know the answer, you can just be like, I'm not too sure.
Now, I would say the first thing comes to my mind. It's rewards from FIFA 17 or 18. I mean, 18. I would say was the best. Yeah.
Oh, the monthly rewards, right? And then the icon if you get
Yeah.
top 100. Yeah,
Yes. Exactly. Yep.
And what would you say gameplay wise? Just this FIFA. So I know obviously a lot of things, constant pressure, all those things. But if there's one thing you would say in your opinion that you would say is overlooked or underlooked, I would say. What would you say? One thing you want to change? I suppose you can say in terms of FIFA gameplay itself.
I would say it's either the normal passes to make it kind of faster and more accurate, because even in like with the better players, you just feel like they don't go where you want, or the defensive line not going too deep when you don't want to. Like you can have 80 or 70 def and they still go really really deep, which I personally don't like. But yeah, I just adapt and play whatever I can to win.
Okay, and this is going to be a weird one. Okay, so I would say you don't have to answer this one. Do you believe in scripting or do you believe in DDA? That's the question. The simple answer. You don't have to explain it, but just what your opinion
Yeah,
is.
I did. Between FIFA 13 and FIFA 17, I did believe in it. Now I don't. Not anymore.
Okay, and and don't forget as well, pro players as well. They have a different eye as well for the game. And I would say as well, one thing I would say is on scripting as well. A lot of it's psychological as well. Sometimes you make mistakes and you win, but you don't realize it because you're winning, right? But when you're losing, of course, you notice everything more as well. And one final question as well: what position did you play? You said you played football before. What position were you playing?
Mostly center back, but there have been a time that I've played on left back too. So mostly defender. Yeah.
Okay. Did you
Wi-
ever did you ever envision yourself? So like when you're playing FIFA, do you take into account like because like the way I play FIFA is I kind of like the Wenger era, and I really like the pass and move, just keep it simple, and I always try to implement that into my gameplay. Did you ever take like anything from like your real football kind of when you were younger, and then do you put it in the same way because you don't abuse mechanics? The question I was like, because a lot of people on a pro scene they're using ball roll scoops, they're spamming shot cancels. So I just want to know, was there any influence? Is there a reason, or do you want to play a certain style or anything in particular?
Yeah, there's I don't know, there's a mix of everything, right? Sometimes you wake up, you want to do a ball roll scoops every game. Sometimes you don't really do them. Obviously, in this formation, I felt like I don't really need that much skill moves. Like I just try to keep it as simple as possible and be like score most of goals with passing plays. But from the real football, I would say I just learned how my defensive line should work and how I should move with them the most, which is also kind of funny because I was always a defender, but in FIFA I like attacking way more, and I would think of myself as an attacking player, not the defensive one. So it's kind of the opposite, but that's what makes the game fun for me, and that's what I'm trying to do on the pitch to just make it look better as well. Yeah.
Okay, well, of course, first of all, massive congratulations again on the E-Premier League. It was a wonderful guest having you on. And if you want to also shout out any of your social media links, I know you got a video on the 352, I believe, on your channel, on your YouTube channel. And is any other social media people can follow you on?
It's YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, maybe Facebook if you guys are still using it. But yeah, I
I'll
know that
link.
English people don't use it that often anymore. But yeah, it's all Damie FIFA. So thank you everyone who wants to follow me.
Okay, so I'll leave all your links down below, and also I'll leave it for your teammate as well. It's Goal Poacher, I believe, as well, and I'll leave
Yep.
as well his social media links, of course, because don't forget he still did the most important thing as well, part of the game, which is closing the game out, and of course stopping the opponent. Of course, don't forget it's always a team game, and of course he did very well. I think he believed he used a 4-2-3-1, didn't he, in this game to close out the game, as opposed to
Mm,
3-5, as opposed to 3-5-2
y- yeah.
or 4-4-2. I'm just kind of looking at it
I
now,
mean,
the
he
shape
was
roughly.
he was playing like both, but at the event he decided to play 4-2-2 or
Four
like
triple
four four
two.
two. Yeah, for most of the time, he just felt like he can still score, but also defended really well. So I didn't really bother with what he's using. I just believed in him, and I mean, he's a good defensive player,
Yeah,
so
you did.
he made the job. Yeah.
Of course. Damian, again, thank you very much for having you on, and hope you guys enjoyed this. And don't forget to follow their social media links. I'll leave them down below in the description. And hope this gave you kind of an insight into 352 and in the mind, of course, in Damie. Anyways, thanks for watching.
Thank you.